Hey everybody, Big J, Anderson Mountain View Farms. Got Lil on the camera, say hey.
Hi.
Got TB here with me.
Hi.
Now we're going to be at the end of our 5-part series on building an analytical mind. Overcoming those obstacles in building an analytical mind for personal stewardship and professional success. So the first parts, of course, we went through as they are developing, building on each other too, right? Problem solving was the first one. Then we got into fractions. Then we got into graphing, whether it be circle graphs or the traditional 4-part Cartesian plane. And then the last one was in negative numbers. This one, the grand finale, and that's roots and exponents. TB, what's an example of squared and cubed that's used every day all the time?
Well, primarily, roots and exponents can be used to calculate square feet or area, and then used to calculate volume. But Big J talked more about that.
Correct. Thank you. So area and volume, two places where we're going to use a lot of this, right? So area, we just think just a traditional length times width. So I've got a table in front of me, 6 feet. This is the little marker for feet by 3 feet. Length times width, right? So 3 times 6, that's going to give me 18. Or if it's just simply, if they're both the same thing, and let's say just the square. So 3 squared, right? 3 squared is equal to 9. So squared, and so in this thing, in the end, it would be what, 18 feet squared. If it was this simple one, it'd be 9 feet squared. So feet times feet, squared. Volume, we're going to add one more element to this, right? It's going to be a box. If I added one more element to this, I'm going to say 3 feet, I'll make it simple, 3. So length times width times height in this case, and we're going to end up with what, 3 cubed, which is of course equal to 27. Now, roots, exponents, one way to really master these and to be able to do them quickly. A lot of stuff that we've been talking about so far, want to do a lot of mental math, mental arithmetic. It will save you a lot of time. And so not having to be a slave to some of the more simpler calculations or being able to really picture stuff. One way to really help this out, and this is going to take a little bit of practice. Some of this you already know if you've mastered your times tables, right? But I want you to go up higher. I want you to go up a little bit higher. In a minute, I'm going to tell you why this is so important and how this will especially help you when you get to higher levels of algebra. But let's say you've got something like, we'll just use a simple one, right? 9 squared is equal to 81. And I want to know, what's the square root of 81? Of course, it's 9. What's 9 squared? That's 81. The more you can recognize, the better off. But I want you to do, when it comes to squared, I want you to go all the way up through 20. All the way up through 20. So 20 squared, obviously being 400. Those are much larger numbers. They'll encompass a bigger, broader base. So master those. Just like when we did fractions, and I really want you to master the least common denominator, base 2, 4, 8, 16. Take some practice. You got to do it. You got to work with it, do some hands-on stuff, and just kind of really solidify it in your mind. Bust out a ruler. Go through it again and again and again, right? I want you to do this as well. Now, some of these you pretty much know 1 through 12. So you just got to take some work, usually, and you got to get up through 13 through 20. 20 squared, 400. So it's those middle numbers that you're going to have to work on. 13 squared, 14 squared, 15 squared, and so on. Now for the cubed, what I want you to work on, don't have to go quite as high with cubed. The numbers get a lot bigger, right? 2 cubed, of course, is 8. 3 cubed is 27, and so on. And I want you to go all the way up through 10 when it comes to cubed. 1 through 20 for squared, and all the way up to 10 at least for cubed. So, of course, 10 cubed being 1,000. So that takes you a pretty nice broad range there. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to go all the way up to 20 for squared. That'll get you squared or square root all the way up and down that ladder, if you will. And I want you to do cubed all the way up to 10. So 10 cubed runs you up and down that ladder from 1 to 1,000. And I call these the amazing numbers. And they're amazing numbers, I think, if you learn it high enough and take some time and discipline to do it. Because eventually you're going to have to what's called simplified roots. Let's say you have something like this, and it's the square root of 9. Well, pretty easy to simplify. Why? This has a perfect root, so square root of 9 is, of course, 3. But let's say you've got something like the square root of 20, and you're like, oh man, it's not going to work. I got to start my factor tree probably. Okay, 4 times 5, and then it's 2 times 2 times 5. I can take out, you know what, yeah, I can end up taking out the 2. Now I've got 2 root 5. So you had to kind of go through a lot of hoops to get there, right? But if you already know, if you can look at a number and you're like, hey, 20, is it divisible by 4? If it is, then I know that I can at least take out a 2 to start out with, and I immediately, okay, 4 times 5, I can take out the 2, and quickly, I'm already at 2 root 5. That's what those amazing numbers do, especially when you get into the bigger numbers. Numbers that you don't tend to see a lot, but they do pop up, okay? So if you've got something like, of course, if you've got the number 100, the square root of 100 being 10. Pretty straightforward, right? Now, let's look at another one real quick. Let me go ahead and jump into cube, but that's what you will do, and that's what I want you to practice. You memorize those amazing numbers, you can look at it and you can say, hey, is it divisible by 4? Is it divisible by 9, 16, 25, 36, and so on, right? You just keep working your all the way up the ladder. It's divisible by this, and you find the highest one that it is. That'll take this out real fast, and then you'll be left with something small at the end, okay? Now, let's look real quick at the cubes and the cube root and why it's important to learn this, okay? And these will kind of tie into each other, why it's good to learn both, right? If we have something like the cube root, usually written with a little 3 there, right? The cube root of 27 is equal to 3. You see something like that, it pops out, right? Now, let's say we are going to do the cube root of 125. You're like, whoa, those numbers are starting to get big, right? But because you've done some memorization, a little 3 here, then you know it's going to be 5, right? Because if we actually did a factor tree, this would end up being, what, 5 times 25, and you broke it down, 5 times 5. So we would have a little triplet here, and of course the 3. So you're used to the prime factorization chart, but I'm trying to speed that up. Just memorize those, okay? So let's say you end up having a number higher than this, or a really large number, but you know what, and you look at it, say if you're in a cube, you're thinking, is it divisible by 125? All right, is it divisible, or the cube, is it divisible by, say, 8? Because 2 cubed is, of course, 8, and so on. And you keep working yourself up, and you can say, you know what, can I pull out some big number right off? You already know what the numbers are. Even if you have to plug them in the calculator, you got some giant number, and you're trying to see, let me see if I can break this down, okay? But at least you know what the numbers are to put in the calculator. You don't have to sit there and guess and wonder, well, what is 12 cubed? What can I bring this? And you're there all day trying to deal with this. So you're going to have to be able to do that, especially when it comes to rationalizing the denominator. This is getting a little bit more up there, but say you've got something like 5, and you're in the bottom ends up being the square root of 5. Well, you can't leave it like that, right? You've got to be able to rationalize that, move it over, or we'll say we have the square root of 20, like the example that we had before. What's that break down to? I already know 4 times 5, I can bring that out, so I'm at 2 root 5. And then, of course, then all I have to do to rationalize this over, I'm going to multiply this by root 5, the top by root 5, and then I just kind of go from there, right? So that I can rationalize all of this stuff out. Now, I hope you've learned something from all of this. I hope it's been beneficial to you. If you know somebody that needs help, check me out, AndersonMountainViewFarms.com. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and our next series we will get into, hopefully, goats, milking, back on the homestead, and how we do that whole process. We'll see you next time.